Hello and welcome to Art and Self. I'm Cindy Ingram, your host and the founder of Art Class Curator, the Curated Connections Library, and the Art and Self Connection Circle. This is a podcast where we experience the range and depth of what it means to be human, seen through our connections and conversations about works of art. These art conversations are here to show you that art is here for you as a catalyst, a challenger, a coach, and a comfort. Before we get started, take a moment to fill up your lungs with a deep breath. Connect with your body and your mind and your spirit, and get ready to discover what art has to show you. Hello, I am so excited to welcome my friend Nikole Pearson to the podcast. Welcome, Nikole.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Me too. I'm very excited. So before we get started with the art, can you tell our listeners about yourself?
Yeah, I probably should have thought this through. And introduction, I have to introduce myself. Yes, my name is Nikole Pearson. So I, like you, one of the reasons I was so drawn to being a guest on your podcast is similar to you. I've gone through a pivot recently, career-wise. So I spent 22 years as an environmental planner, working on environmental projects for government agencies. And in the pandemic, kind of threw a little bit of a wrench for us. While government contracting in general increased, a lot of agencies that had to do field work first couldn't get into the field. They were all working from home. So our business kind of took a hit. And I thought, what am I going to do? And, I had some personal things we might talk about today that really shook me up. And so I've recently pivoted from doing environmental projects to talking about the environment. So I now write about climate change topics at my website as a blogger. I'm a blogger. I have to practice saying that. Blogger, and it's a real job.
Yeah, it is a real job. I started out as a blogger, and I had a hard time calling myself a blogger for a while too.
Yeah. And my daughter and I were in a store, and this girl had asked us, because it was a work day. She said, what do you do that you can take the day off? And I went back to, I'm an environmental planner. I do government contracting. And my daughter, we left, and she's like, this is LA, Mom. This is the only place where you could say, I'm a blogger. And that girl's going to say, cool. I can't believe you.
That's so funny. Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day and I was like, oh gosh, I was like, now I've added coach to my resume, and then the art history major. I was like, I'm just getting all the cliche jobs in one: blogger, coach, and art history major. I'm like, it's fine. I'm making it work. It's fine.
So funny.
Yeah. So funny. Awesome. So you blog at NikolePearson.com?
Yeah, NikolePearson.com.
Yeah, we'll put a link to that in our show notes. Okay, so I'm going to show you the art. I'm going to show you four options, and then pick whatever one really calls to you. Don't spend too much time on titles, but I do have to warn you, finding good, I wanted it to be an environmental focus. There's a lot of climate change, environmental art out there, but it is they're very hit you over the head. It's like, here is our one big message, and we want you to feel this one way. And so they're all kind of simple without a lot of digging you can do. So I tried to find some that were more complex than just, a dying polar bear or something. There were some that were just clearly we'll get this in 5 minutes and be done. So
right.
It was a little bit of a challenge, but I think I did okay. Yeah, it was just very obvious what the meaning was, which is what is needed for this situation. You want people to be emotionally charged. It is,
although I can't wait to talk about this because I have kind of a whole different take about climate change, which is why I'm writing about it. I know. So I'm very excited about this.
All right, you've piqued my interest. I'm sure you've piqued the interest of the others too, but let's look at the art first. Okay, so we have The Order of the Night by Anselm Kiefer, and then we have Unbecoming by Vasilis Avramidis. And listeners will know his art because we've already featured him on the podcast before, but I just had to keep it in, even though he's already been featured. We have Conjecture by Tukrul and Tagra. They're an Indian artist duo. And then this one is I was telling Nikole before we started that I have kind of a different one, that this one is an entire exhibition. So I have one artwork here on the screen by Jason deCairnes Taylor, but he actually created a museum of underwater sculpture, and it has over 1,100 artworks underwater. sculptures. So I just have some other pictures here of some of the other artworks. And then I have just even more that we can look at or not look at, depending on where did we decide to go. So those are your 4-ish options.
Oh my goodness.
Any of them call into you? And I can go back and look at one again if you want to, see it closer too.
I think still do the underwater one.
Okay.
That's interesting to me.
Sorry for
so these are actually underwater?
Yes. So let me make this a little bit bigger so we can see it. But the art is, so there is one museum outside of Cyprus that has 1,100 artworks at it, the Museum of Underwater Sculpture of Ayia Napa, which is in Cyprus. But he also has these same sculptures all over the world. Like there's some in Mexico, there's some in Spain, there was some in obviously the oceans outside of these places. So he has them all over the world as well. And then he creates them in a material that is primed for sea life to bury themselves in it, like to create new coral reefs and new ocean life. So it's like rejuvenating the oceans at the same time.
Well, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Actually, this is a really good one I think.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a really good one. Now my mind is racing.
Sounds good. So let's you want to talk about just this image in particular and kind of interpret it, and then we can, if we still want to, go to the other images and kind of interpret like the project as a whole.
Okay.
That sound good?
Yeah.
Or we can go the other way around too.
Yep. Nope. Let's start here.
Okay. So will you describe for our listeners what you're seeing here?
Oh, so I'm like the most unartsy person describing this, but so it looks like there's obviously water halfway up the image, and underneath there's somebody standing, looking up out of the water to someone who is standing half in the water looking down. And then in the background, there's walls, but they look maybe decayed, or, they're not complete. You can see through them. There's holes and gaps. And then the picture shows both underwater and above water. I really like that. And the surface across the top, which reflects the walls around it.
Yeah. And it was reflecting the man that's standing
and the man
above the water as well.
The man above the water looks very ornate, right? Has patterns and designs that make me think of somebody that's, in art, ornate people tend to be the more wealthy, right?
Oh,
I know. I think there might be some statement about class here and income inequality as well. It's not class, but income inequality.
I can definitely see that too, because do you see the one at the bottom as a kid too?
Oh, I didn't see it as a kid, but that could be. I didn't.
It looks like a kid to me, but also it looks like they are Black based on the facial features and the hair,
right?
Yeah.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
I thought definitely the same thing. It looks like what is that called even? The hairstyle, right?
Yeah. So one is looking down. And then
I can't recall words half the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Same. The pattern on the man standing there looks like, to me, it looks like penne pasta put in a a chevron pattern. So just a way to describe it. It's like this little kind of chevron zigzaggy type of pattern. And then he has slashes in his face.
Yeah.
And all along his arms. And I'm wondering if that's functional as a way for coral to.
Oh, yeah.
But it also could be part of the meaning too.
Well, and I wonder, this is an ocean, you said, right? Because it's for coral.
Mm-hmm.
So the art would change according to tide, right? So I wonder if this is high tide, low tide. Does the person under the water ever come out? Or does the person out of water eventually become submerged? Because I feel like that has meaning.
Yeah. What kind of meaning do you think it has?
Well, I think that when talking about the issue of climate change, for sure, there's an income inequality problem, right? There's a environmental justice issue, and poorer countries, smaller countries on the coast or islands are certainly feeling the impacts first, right? and wealthier countries aren't really doing anything about it. We're still just living our lives the way we are. However, if this is at low tide and eventually that person standing out goes underwater, I mean, I think it foretells the future of, right? Like you may be standing out of the water now, looking down upon, which, that person is looking down into the water, looking down upon the people who are already feeling the impacts of climate change. You're not immune to the impacts. It's just a matter of time, which is true.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you were saying you kind of have a different view of climate change, what?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So when I had some free time and I started looking into environmental issues, so I've spent 20 some years reading about projects. We read about the environmental impacts of a project that the government is doing. So that specific little project, right? That small piece of the world. And what impact will that have on the environment as a whole? But after 20 years of doing this, I realized, that background that we're measuring this against, it is changing. It is changing so quickly. And so just looking at the impacts of this one project, like I felt really helpless. Like I'm not making a big difference. Yeah, maybe this project isn't doing something damaging, but it's all changing anyway, right? No matter what. So I started looking at climate change, and it's really sad. Like if you want to feel depressed and, you want to like eat a pint of ice cream at a time and think about just giving up and why did I have children? Like go out and read about climate change. Do it. But in reading, I felt like people were missing a really important message. And that is all the places and countries and people and organizations and businesses that are making big changes in the way that they do business or how they govern and are trying to tackle climate change. So there's a book called Project Drawdown, and they look through different things that we could do and the difference that they'll make. So composting, for example, I had no idea. If we all composted, we could reduce, I don't even know, gigatons, hundreds of thousands, millions of gigatons of carbon from going into the environment. We can make little changes. And then what they saw was that these changes were also better for the economy, for the people, and for society. So by having to tackle climate change, we're also going to be improving the world as a whole. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's it almost felt slightly hopeful for.
I'm actually really hopeful. There's a quote that I wish was mine. I could take credit for it, but it's Project Drawdown. And he says, climate change isn't happening to us. It's happening for us.
Oh.
Right? Climate change is it's forcing us to change business as usual.
Yeah.
But in doing so, if we do it, we will end up on the other side of this in a world that's infinitesimally better than the one we have now, or the one that we will have if we just continue the way business as usual. And so there's been a lot of countries that are making big changes. And like I said, in companies, and I just see so many people, individuals and large organizations that are saying, we have to change business as usual. And just the changes that they're making are rippling across, like you said, across economies and across, we all need clean air, right? So if we start talking about going to EVs, electric vehicles, and we get rid of carbon, gas powered vehicles or any sort of zero emission, right? It doesn't have to be just EVs. It could be hydrogen or something. We also clean the air. We also have better air quality, right?
Yeah.
I think it's just there's so many amazing solutions that if we looked at them, not just through the lens of climate change, because unfortunately climate change has been very politicized and there's a lot of, oh gosh, I don't know if you want to get me started on that, on the whole climate change denialism and where that came from and how it's been funded and the money that's gone into it just to keep money flowing. It's insane. You look at the man standing out of the water, ornate and wealthy. Yeah, you can keep making profits off of gas-powered vehicles, but eventually you too are going to suffer. Eventually you will be underwater, or you will have poor air quality in your city. If it's not you, it's your children or your grandchildren,
Yeah.
And I just think that if we could even step back and say, okay, I'm a climate denier, I don't think it's getting fine. Okay, I'll meet you there. Well, let's talk about putting solar power on your home so that we can decentralize the electrical grid. So we are no longer beholden to power companies, utility companies. I mean, you're in Texas.
Yeah.
You went through some stuff.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Years ago.
Yeah, we did.
If we had been working towards solar power and had been collectively saying, hey, this is the right way to go, not just for the environment, but because we can decentralize the power grid, the consumer becomes the generator and can sell not power only back to utility companies, but to their neighbors or to collective, to groups, or to your home. All of a sudden, with solar panels on your home, you can power your home, you can power your car. Every oil company out there now has no power. Sorry, power has two meanings in this sentence, right?
I was following you. Yeah. Yeah.
When I talk about decentralizing power, I mean literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Right? We can put power out in rural areas now, or places in Africa where you don't have to run transmission lines from an electrical generator in a city all the way out. They generate their own power. We don't need to all be connected to this grid, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just think when I think about decentralizing electricity and the major companies which is why they've fought it for so long, right?
Yeah.
Because they're smart enough to have seen this 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And putting that power, I mean, as a country, as a democratic country where we think our only power lies in being able to vote for elected officials. No, we could be in a world where our power literally is under our control, right? How we run our cars, how we power our homes, how we charge our electric devices, everything could be something that we control. Like, it's amazing. I mean, I tell people about decentralizing power. I'm like, if your mind isn't just like blown, then you're just not getting it. And I'm going to have to keep talking.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why so much of the art is, I found a lot of art that was about the data, different visualizations of the data. There was one that was like knitted and that was like showing temperature change. And there was one that was showing the grid, and like the upwards was like fire, and then like the downwards was the ice. And, and then, so it was like, they're trying so hard to like convince people that, yes, this is real, and in all these different ways possible.
And I think they do that, you see that in art, and you see that in writing, and you see that in everybody is saying, and even in my writing, the articles that I put on early were, hey, this is the catastrophe that we're running towards. Here's how we can protect ourselves. Here's the little changes we can make to try to, the little changes like composting and recycling and don't use a coffee cup. And these are the little things we can do. And then as I dove deeper and deeper, and you got to get really deep into the data and the writing, because this is not as accessible, I'm thinking, holy crap, like we could have this world, we could create a world where we do have more freedom, where people have, you talk about the American dream and, and income inequality, and it's so bad. And there are solutions out there that solve the climate crisis that also solve income inequality, that do create new jobs. In this country, we fight a lot about coal, right? In those coal states, and we can't shut down coal plants because people have jobs. But these people work jobs in coal mines where they get sick and they die, and it's dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Now they're taking, so under the new Inflation Reduction Act that was just passed by the Biden administration, they're taking those coal plants, shutting them down, and giving the money to, there's funding to transform those into renewable energy plants or electric vehicle battery production, all these things. There's so many things that they can be transformed in, where people can have better paying jobs doing work that's not going to kill them. how can we be mad about that? Right? Just your father was a coal miner and your grandfather and your great grandfather, and that's your identity. Like, I sympathize with that.
Yeah.
Empathize maybe, but good God, right? Like change is inevitable. And so I just see so much promise. I see so many opportunities. Smart grids where your house will start communicating with the electric company and you will adjust its own usage based on demand. You might have your car plugged in, or you have a battery pack that, because people will need these long-term batteries, which the government is actually giving tax credits now to buy and put into your home. And so it will not only power your home at night or if the grid goes down, but you can put electricity back into the grid to keep it from going down, right? Like this really connected, it's like science fiction. It's science fiction.
It is. Well, we're being forced into science fiction too. It's like that water is climbing up and we have to innovate.
We have to. And I think that, the people who are most resistant, I think it's become a political identity issue. And again, regardless of your politics, if you live on the coast of Florida, you're going to be underwater in a few years. Well, you could be. I mean, I think that reversing our emissions and then pulling carbon out of the atmosphere. Also, they're looking for, commercial ways to make a profit off of pulling carbon. So you pull carbon out of the atmosphere, and then what can we do with it? And there's a lot of research right now going into what can we make or what can we, produce, right? Not just store it back into the ground, but what can we do with it to make it economically viable? And there are predictions about this being a multi-trillion-dollar industry someday. And, a lot of us who are, going along with our lives every day who are being told it's either doomsday, like it's over, just start eating your ice cream. Don't work out anymore because, there's no need to jog. I think we're all dead anyway. Or hey, it's a hoax and it doesn't exist. There are these people who are the ones standing outside of the water here who are investing and making money. In California, there are three companies that control electric vehicle charging in this state. But who have invested in and built the infrastructure. Yeah. One of those companies was just purchased by Shell. Shell Oil Company is now getting into the battery EV charging business. Why? Because that's the future. Shell's going to be just fine. Everybody who feels sorry for Shell because we're not buying fuel anymore, gasoline, and they have to make record profits to make up for the whatever. Shell's going to be just fine. So it's time that individually we all think about how can we capitalize on what's coming? Because there's going to be so many economic opportunities, which is a little bit different topic, but yeah.
No, I'm just sitting here just taking it all in because
I could go on and on and on. I know.
No, it's so good because I guess in my head, it's one of those things that just, it feels hopeless. And then I just look and I'm like, well, nothing's going to happen unless we all do something. Nothing's going to happen unless these big corporations do something. And so what power do I have? And so I just get into this spiral of complete hopelessness. My vote is really all I have, and I'm in Texas, and so my vote doesn't necessarily either. No matter who I'm voting for, one side's going to win.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's happened because we just kind of live in a world where what is it? If it bleeds, it reads. Right? That's our. So let's give them the bad news because people will consume the bad news. Who wants to read the solution? Right? Who wants to read about the solution? But I do, so I don't know if it's just that, or if it's by design so that people don't change. Because I think if you feel hopeless, you're less likely to make a change because it's hopeless, right?
Yeah,
right. And if we were really told the impact, and I think too, change is hard, right? I think people don't change until it gets really uncomfortable. I mean, we've all been there, right? Right.
Yeah.
Nobody really changes until it just gets staying the same is more painful than changing, which is kind of, I think, where we are on the cusp of climate change as we're seeing hurricanes and heat waves and wildfire, right? So I think as a society, a lot of people who were skeptical are starting to say, but or if it's I hope it's not something by design to keep people from changing their behaviors. And I do think there is that, again, when you follow the money and you look at some of the oil companies and some of the concerted effort to feed climate denialism, it's shocking. It's shocking. And then that's when I get a little bit, how am I possibly going to fight? How can my little voice be a difference to something that big? But I do think that, as Americans, we're just such individualists, and we're such, America has more entrepreneurs than any other country. And I read somewhere that someone said they think it's because most people who came to America, we were immigrants, right? Yeah. No matter how far back it goes, we all come from immigrants. And to leave your home country and everything that you know and your family and your friends and to venture someplace unknown, you have to have a little bit of ruggedness and an adventure and risk taker. You have to be a bit of a risk taker. And that may have passed genetically down through generations. And so we have a whole country of a little bit of risk takers. And so I feel if you can talk to people about not just what it does for the climate, but the benefits for them, themselves, their community, their friends, their families. And again, taking back our power from corporations, which have really held that over us for my entire life. Yeah. I was born in the 70s, right? The fuel crisis of, the energy crisis of the 70s. And then, we're still having the same conversations, right? Here we are 50 years later, still having the same conversations. We don't have to be. Yeah. Okay. I know, right?
I'm just like, okay, where do we go from here? This is it's so much. Okay, so let's pull it back into the art. And
yes, sorry.
Oh no, you're great. I asked you that question because I was like, I have to hear the answer to this question.
Right?
It would have maybe come out naturally, but I was like, I just really need the answer to this question. So we've noticed the income inequality, the rising and lowering of the tides, the race view here. How else are you seeing kind of the stuff that we've been talking about in this work of art?
So I think when I look at the background, I think that that's what I love. One of the things I love and hate about art is that it's a lot of interpretation. And I'm a scientist by nature. And so I don't like interpretation. I like a, black or white, like yes or no, up or down. But I think that my mother's an artist, I should mention. So I grew up my whole life with, interpretation, which is probably why because I rebelled against my mother and became a scientist. My hippie mom. So you. But I think that in the background, when you look at those, like we said, the walls in the background, they have large gaping holes and it's obviously, it looks like, because it's not even and cut, right? It's what do you call that? Like it's really uneven, wiggly, squiggly,
like organic lines. Shapes. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's your art term for the day. Organic shapes.
Thank you. Organic shapes. It looks as though it could be decay, right? And so some might say that it could be interpreted as saying we're just being destroyed, right? It's just a sign of destruction. It's a sign of decay, of breaking down, of because climate change is very much like that. It could be also interpreted as a breaking down of the norms, right? Of breaking the walls so we can see through and see out, right? If you've been trapped inside, if those were full walls, those figures, at least the one under the water would be inside of it. The person that's standing above looks like almost like in a doorway or something, an opening. But, I think it could be interpreted as we can see through them now. We can see out. And guess what? There's a whole world out there of possibilities.
I I love that. And we're looking out into the sky that from our angle. I mean, I guess from any angle,
Right.
most you're going to be seeing through the sky. This one
Yeah,
in
you'd be
particular.
seeing, right? And so it's vast, right? There's no structures blocking the view of the sky. There's nothing, no buildings or, it is just open sky, right?
Yeah.
It seems like it's opening to possibilities, not necessarily a sign of destruction and falling apart.
Yeah. And if I'm imagining if that wall were solid, it's like, I think it's made out of, it's gray. So for listeners, it's gray, but I think it's like steel or something like that. It
Yeah.
looks like
Looks
metal.
like a metal. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of rusted in parts and mossy as it gets closer to the water. But notice that I'm pointing at my screen like you can see my finger. But like the mossy kind of goes up, so it makes me think the tide. And then look at the top of him.
Yeah.
The tide goes up to his shoulders. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I think the head sticks out at high tide. I think you're right. Because you can see also like on the shoulders, doesn't that look kind of dirtied and mossy and
yeah, the penne pasta on his chest is a different color than it is.
That's the official artistic term.
Yeah, that is. That's what they call that shape. Yeah, it's a different color. So, that's really interesting. Right. But then, with climate change, the water levels are rising. Mm-hmm. And eventually, like right now, maybe the top tide is to his shoulders, but eventually.
What is that? Like just a foot? Just a foot more.
Yeah.
That person would be underwater. So really that person, at high tide is still safe, but any higher from climate change and that person will be underwater. Wow.
And I imagine like the feeling of the person, like right now the tide is low. It's kind of at probably a little bit above his belly button-ish and then at his elbows. And then like right now he can breathe. He's fine. He's okay. But as it starts to rise, I can imagine that sort of panic. And that's probably what is how we kind of feel collectively is as it gets worse and worse, like that panic is going to start rising.
Yeah.
One would assume, one would hope. I guess.
And I do think, we're seeing that whether it's, I think unfortunately rising sea levels is a very slow process.
Yeah.
Or I guess fortunately, but things like fire and, for sure people are starting to feel that panic already.
Yeah. Just this past summer, how hot it was.
The heat.
It was so shocking. Right? Yeah. It's like we all realized it, I think, for the first time, like, oh, this is different. This is. Yeah. Well, and then the winters we've had in Texas have been so weird too. So it's just so strange. So what do you make of the man's feet? Like, he looks like his legs sort of billow out to like a fabric or
and he's standing on a structure, right? So, and I imagine that's just needed in order to have the difference in height. Yeah. Although I do wonder if you could see it without any water, right? Like his hands, what are his hands? What are they doing? And then what is he standing on? And what does that mean? Is it just the temporary advantage that some people have? We talk again about the inequality. Is it if you stand on something, although it's not very big, there's not room for a lot of people on that little.
Yeah, that's true.
Where
I mean, it could just be showing his could be like his status or also his actual physical elevation. He's not in one of those islands that's getting impacted. He's physically higher than sea level. But I can't figure out what's going on with this fabric.
No, I can't either. I think it's something we haven't really talked about. The fact that this is from a material and done in such a way that, can rebuild coral and fish can live in it. It can become habitat. That's pretty amazing because, which is such a profound statement. That's amazing.
That's how people talk.
Right? Coral reefs are, disappearing and dying and bleaching and, anything that you can do to increase the habitat, in which who would have thought artwork? Yeah. I think that's what, the artwork could serve as habitat for wildlife. I think that's something that we forget as non-artists. I think artwork, I think paintings on my wall, you know? And then occasionally, I think I told you before, my mom is an art teacher. And so every city we ever went to growing up, I was drugged through, you know, every museum, art museum, kicking and screaming usually.
Yeah.
But, you know, I forget that sometimes that art piece is walking through a mirrored tunnel, right? Where it's mirrors and you look at things, and, or a room full of the balls that reflect, or, you know, we've done. And so to see sculpture, yes, I get that. But sculpture that serves as habitat.
Yeah. It's like living becomes a living thing.
It becomes a solution, right? So even the artwork talking about the danger and the potential, I don't want to say inevitable, because I just think it's the potential future. We have a choice. But looking at the potential future, even that piece of art says, guess what? I'm going to show you the solutions. I'm going to be a solution by increasing habitat for corals, which then, you know, have not only just for fish and stuff, but they help with flooding, and they do help. Actually, a healthy coral will reduce sea level rise. There's, you know, healthy coral. I'm a little vague on that kind. I'm not an ocean person, but I know when they talk about like tsunamis and they talk about waves and stuff, and those areas with healthy corals are actually had less damage inland. I've read that somewhere, but. So now he's become a solution to climate change, plus absorbing carbon and all the other things that they do.
Yeah. It's interesting. I kind of have two divergent thoughts at the moment, but one is thinking about how this sculpture is becoming a living thing. And if you look at, I invite everybody to go to this guy's website. We'll link it in the show notes, but there are so many pictures of ones that have been completely covered in coral, and they're not even recognizable anymore. And so that really makes me think of, and then you mentioned the organic shapes in the wall, kind of reminding you of the decay as well. And it makes me think of, you know, in the end, no matter what happens, like the earth is going to, it's going to figure itself out. You know, once we're all gone and we're not making those damaging things to the environment, the earth is going to replenish. It's going to rejuvenate. It's done it before, and it's going to do it again. And it might do it, you know, many more times before the sun explodes and then it's all gone.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like nature will find a way to just still exist and live and overtake the humans.
That's a really interesting point. That's really interesting. I hadn't even thought of that about, in the end, not only does it exist, or not only does it continue, but it eventually overcomes the damage that we've done, right? It eventually will, like you said, it's unrecognizable. So the human figure one day here will be unrecognizable, covered by nature.
Oh, I just had the thought that you know how like fossils and whatnot become fuel? Like, what if our bodies are going to be the fuel for like future races on the planet? Like,
that end up like digging the oil and if we do this again,
surely they won't do it again. Maybe,
right?
But I don't know. Sorry, that freaked me out for a minute.
Right. This is like around. It's a cycle. I mean, they say, you know, history repeats itself, man. Like,
yeah.
Oh. Yeah, because it's the organic material, that has become the oil and coal, and
Yeah. Weird. I can't get that picture out of my head for some reason. I have this picture in my head of like everything being like humanless, and then us being, I don't know. I need to stop. Okay. The second divergent thought, this is when Cindy gets lost in her imagination and can't pull it back in. Happens too many times in a day. The second thing I was thinking of was, so these sculptures are becoming a solution. They are replenishing coral. They're helping the environment. But then I saw one thing that said the Museum of Underwater Sculpture has a goal of serving 50,000 visitors in a year. Or like it was something like the year or whatever. They want to bring people in and to like visit the museum. And so then I'm like, are all these people going to be then scuba diving and then disrupting the new coral environments? And is that going to, do you know anything about that impact?
I don't know how that, because I guess I hadn't thought about how would you view it? You would have to get in the water, right? It has to be an immersive viewing. Then I also wonder all those people traveling, right?
Yeah.
We have a lot of airline tickets. We have a lot of cars running. We have a lot of, what is the impact, the environmental impact of wanting your art to be seen? That's a commentary on environmental impact.
Yeah. And it's outside, it's on an island that, it's probably not easy to get to Cyprus. I think Cyprus is an island, isn't it? It's like in the Mediterranean.
No, I was prepared for art, not for geography.
This is one of those things I should have looked. I'm pretty sure because I studied like Cyprus ancient art at one point in my life, and I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's an island. Okay.
Oh, yep, it's an island.
Okay, we looked it up on Google Maps.
You can just say, because we can start again. Ready? Cyprus is an island.
Yeah, I mean that's not an easy part of the world to get to from over here. It's in the middle of the Middle East, basically, the ocean, that whatever bay this is, Mediterranean Sea, I guess. So are we counteracting all of the good deeds?
That is such a topic. And I think that that's something climate change deniers like to throw back. Like, oh, right now, as of the recording, they're having the, what is it? The COP27, the climate summit. What is COP? The climate change conference, COP. Clearly, this must not be in English originally, but Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate. Anyway, that's happening right now in Egypt. And so, of course, people from around the world are flying into Egypt to have this conference on climate change, right? And there's a lot of criticism saying, people around the world, like world leaders and journalists and report, and all the carbon emissions that you need, that you create to get there, to talk about what are we doing about emissions. And I don't, part of me says, well, this is what you have to do now until it gets better, right? These are our only options. So I think, is it worth flying to somewhere near Cyprus, taking a boat to Cyprus, getting in the water and disturbing? Is that what we have to do? It's our only options now. So is it what we have to do to try to implement a bigger change, right? Because of course, coming out of these conferences, the COP27 will be, big changes that governments make, that people in power will make based on promises they make at these or pressure, pressure from worldwide pressure. And that has to be greater than not meeting at all. So is it worth it? I guess that's the question. I don't know the answer, right? Like I could effectively argue both sides, I believe.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I mean, and it's not just this, it's every decision we make right now in just our everyday life. There is this trade-off. There is this, I do this good thing, but then that is messing up this other good thing. And you're like, well, what is this? Yeah. What is the good choice?
And it becomes difficult too with the things I didn't even know. So I've worked in the environmental industry for 22 years, and I still learn stuff every day and researching when I'm writing articles for myself or for other publications, where I'm like, wait, microplastics, we need like a credit card a day. Water inhaling and eating, a credit card's worth of plastic a day. So then I look around my house and I see all the things I have. My organic lettuce comes in a giant plastic clamshell that can't be recycled. Yeah. What am I going to do? Right? Like, do I stop buying organic lettuce?
Yeah.
And is that, what's the trade-off, right? And because I can't have this plastic and I got to and I think it can become something that's just, it becomes so overwhelming. I mean, I'm one of those people who easily becomes overwhelmed. If I have too many things to do in my head and it starts to swirl, like I just stare at the wall, right, for a long time and I don't do anything. And so I worry that people will start to, the more we learn, the more frozen in a decision, and everything I do is going to be wrong. So what can I do? And like you said, there has to be a trade-off sometimes. Until we can just start demanding that organic lettuce not be put in a stupid plastic container that can't be recycled, which again, there are state governments. I know California, we have a we have they just passed a law that phasing out single-use plastics. So those people with the plastic container for your lettuce, they're going to have to figure out what else they're going to do. So.
Yeah, as you were talking, I started to think, it seems like it's the governing bodies and the policymakers that are the ones that have to regulate this and then all of us just walking around being guilty about everything that we're doing, that doesn't feel like a good thing to do either.
Some of it is really just a society change. So when we moved to California, plastic bags were outlawed. You can't just use single-use plastic bags. If you get the plastic bag from the store, it costs you like a dime or something, and then you reuse these. They're strong and thick, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I forget my plastic bag, I'll be like, no, I got like 7 items, just pile it in my arms and I'm going to go. And I walked out of the store with my stuff. And the first few times I did that, I thought, this feels so wrong.
Yeah.
So wrong. Someone's going to stop me at the door with me and my, 7 items.
Think you're stealing them.
And I'm stealing, right? I felt terrible. Now I'm like, I forgot my bags, just put everything back into the cart after you ring it up, and I'll just leave and I'll put it in my car, and then I'll, go home, get my bags, bring them down. Like, yes, this is a pain, but it's normal now.
Yeah.
It's normal. When I go back to visit my family in Idaho and I just have 3 things. I'll just carry them out. And they look at me like, no, let me get you a bag. No, really, I don't need one. Here's our single-use plastic, right? Like, some of it is just that we have to start, giving ourselves a little bit of grace to say the way we've done things doesn't have to be the way that we do things. And if it feels weird, that's okay. You know what? Eventually it's not going to feel weird anymore. Eventually you're going to get used to just carrying your stuff out of the grocery store.
Yeah.
Bringing your bags with you. You'll remember. It might take you 18 months, but you'll remember. Might speak from experience on that one.
Yeah, we went to Seattle for vacation this summer, and they have the bag thing there too. And it felt really weird just walking out with just stuff. But yeah, we were there for like 11 days or something. And by the end of it, it was starting to feel like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. Why don't we do this in Texas?
Right? Like, why do we just because we always thought we needed plastic bags, and they'll put like 1 box of crackers and 2 cans of soup in a bag. And then, so you end up with 20 bags because I don't know, they want you to feel like you got your money's worth. Why? It's so weird.
Yeah.
We just because that's what it feels normal. And there's just all sorts of stuff like that I think it's uncomfortable. Change is so uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. But that one, I was forced into it, right?
Yeah.
State said no more single-use plastic bags. So I got used to it. Other choices that we've tried to make at home where it feel really weird and are uncomfortable, you just keep trying, keep going. And that one day this will feel normal too. So.
Yeah. What are some of those changes that y'all have made? Because you've already made the decision. So now I can be like, oh, this is the one I should do. As Nikole says to do it.
Yeah. Well, we're doing one that's kind of that's super uncomfortable is we're becoming a 1-car family, getting rid of our car. And it's this Hyundai Santa Fe that's got like the 3rd row and the big moonroof, and I mean, it's like 12 miles a gallon, 4-wheel drive, leather seats. And we're keeping it was our daughter's actually her used Prius that we got her to go to college, but she moved in with her boyfriend. They can only have 1 car. And now we have this extra car. Anyway, my car is such a status symbol. I am so uncomfortable that we're going down to 1 vehicle when we have 3 of us, right? So my son's going to graduate high school this year and he'll be going to community college next year, or I think. Anyway, he'll be going to college next year. So either he'll leave and he won't need a car, or he'll stay living at home and he'll need one. And just that like anxiety that one of us might have the car and someone else might need to go somewhere. What am I going to do? And then also the other flip side of it is like, I'm going to have to go out into public all the time in a used Prius. And I mean, isn't that crazy? Yeah. It's not even a fancy car. I don't even have a Porsche. By the way, I'm in LA. My Hyundai Santa Fe is at the bottom of the range. Our garage down there is like Porsches and Beamers, and I'm just like,
Oh,
what is this? But I know, but it worked. We had this dog, and he used to be in the third row. Anyway, so I think, something like giving up the 2-car family.
yeah.
We work from home. When we do work out, we walk to the co-working space. We hardly drive ever. There's public transportation to a lot of places if I want to, and we have tried using it. That's the other thing we've done is we've really tried to use the bus. And I got to tell you, the bus in LA is an experience. I love LA, don't get me wrong. But there are sometimes when I'm on the bus where I'm like, I'm going to die. I might be killed. I'm sharing my Google location with my mom. She can tell them where to look for my body.
But those are the things like we want to do good, but then it's just like we feel physically unsafe if we, it's like those are the real barriers.
I know. And then the more people who ride it, though, then the safer it gets, right? So, but if you don't ride it, so it's this use, if you don't ride it, then they cut routes, and then I can't get to where I'm going. So now I don't ride it. And then they don't, and then it becomes unsafe because now it's just the homeless people riding up and down Santa Monica Boulevard in the cold, or the heat, and which is a whole nother topic of, needing solutions. But yeah, I think not having 2 cars is so uncomfortable, and it's ridiculous. We don't need one. Yeah. But it terrifies me. In fact, we've been planning on doing this for like 4 months. We've got it cleaned. We're going to, like detailed. I've done the thing. In fact, I commit. I will do it after. I will do it before. Okay. Well, it has to be renewed again in December, early December. So that's our deadline because it's ridiculous.
Don't renew it.
Yeah. I think that's probably one of our biggest is changes that we're making that's really, really uncomfortable, even though it's just a perceived uncomfort. We still have a car. We're not going car free. We'll still have one car.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, we have 2 cars. We both work from home. And I'm sitting here drinking a Starbucks and I'm just like with a straw in it. But I needed to stir my sweetener. I was like, I need the straw because how am I going to stir my sweetener? Because they don't have the sweetener I like anymore. So I have to bring my own. And then
is it the sippy cup lid?
Yeah.
Oh,
and I hate that. It is a sippy cup lid. The
sippy cup lid actually uses more plastic than the old lid plus a straw.
Really? So I have a sippy cup lid and a straw.
Yeah. Well, you're just going to hell, but
and I'm putting sweet and low, which is a sin in a lot of people's eyes.
Well, that's a climate change thing. No,
I'm sure that's impacting climate change too.
Then the whole, like the sippy cup lid, and then you find out it's more plastic. Like, oh, I've been greenwashed again. But yeah.
Oh, I did not know that. That is fascinating.
I know. There's so many things like that are so deceiving. And yeah, again, we've been living inside, like the artwork, the walls are solid. And I think they're starting to decay open or whatever, maybe not decay, maybe.
Yeah.
Starting to open. I would like to take a sledgehammer to it, actually. I think if people had the information, we could make better choices and feel empowered doing it. That's the other thing is I think the car, I need to flip it, right? It's all your interpretation, right? I need to flip it and say, I'm not a victim of having to go to one car to try to save the world. Makes you sound like a victim.
It was your choice.
Hero. But it's my choice. I don't need
It's your choice. Yeah.
It's an albatross, right? Like I pay more on it. I have insurance. I have, because I have 2 teenagers that I'm, 17-year-old and a 22-year-old. Wait till kids start driving your insurance. This is an albatross. Why am I doing this? I could be free of it. And I think there's a lot of choices like that where we looked at it where I'm just doing this as part of a consumerism, and I could let go of this and feel so good.
Yeah, I was listening. This is related, but unrelated at the same time. I'm listening to Big Magic. It's the 3rd time I've listened to it, but by Elizabeth Gilbert. And she said a line that kind of stopped me on my tracks yesterday, probably because I was thinking about the environment so much. But she was talking about someone who was like becoming an ice skater in their 40s just because they did it when they were a kid and they loved it and the freedom it gave them. But she was like, the exact quote was something like, she felt like she was doing something for once in her life that wasn't just in order to be a consumer. And And then I was just sitting there as I'm listening to it as I'm consuming. I was driving from Target to Dollar Tree, to consume things. But yeah, and then I look around and like, oh yeah, my whole life right now.
Which is somewhat of a trap, right? Which is, a whole other thing is the American economy is completely built on consumerism, it only functions if we buy more this year than we did last year. It's the only way the economy grows. And, that is one thing I think again, when we look at it through the environmental lens, we say, well, wait a minute, what if I stopped buying stuff, maybe did more experiences? I went to the theater instead.
Yeah.
I mean, these things could really bring us joy. I think there's so many choices we can make that even if we make them because of climate change, we end up benefiting in so many other ways.
Yeah.
So many other ways.
Yeah. Create and engaging in creating things like this artwork that we're looking at, that
right.
It's like, yeah, all of it wrapped up into one. Okay. Well, what else? Okay. Is there anything that you're feeling left unsaid in this artwork? Is there any part of it that you've been kind of looking at that we haven't discussed? Or
think so. I think that I'm really glad that you brought up the point that over time it gets overtaken by nature.
Mm-hmm.
That is the end, right? The end result. And whether we're looking at, like you said, we might F this up, but guess what? The world will go on.
Yeah.
And that's the end result. Or the end result being that we, make changes that improve nature, that improve our relationship with nature. It's still the end game. Like one of the two has to happen.
Yeah.
Right. Nature will either come back and take over after we're gone, or we will develop a relationship with respect to nature, to our environment, and respect and a willingness to cohabitate with it in a way that we don't end up demise. But I think that's the end, right? The end game is the same.
Yeah.
Which is the artwork, right?
Yeah.
Like it kind of tells a story. It tells this whole story from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And while you're viewing it, as it changes and the water level changes, and it's very dynamic. So I guess that's
awesome.
The whole experience is kind of I'm glad we picked this one.
I know, great. Me too. I'm like, you just summed this up so beautifully. Like we didn't talk as in depth about the artwork, maybe as I have in some of the other episodes, but I'm not mad about that because it all ties in and it's all related. And I think that I can see everything that we talked about reflected back when I look at it.
It's a dynamic piece that requires a dynamic conversation.
Indeed. Love that. Okay. So excellent end to the conversation. So can you tell our listeners where they can find you online?
Yes. So my website is the biggest place, Nikole Pearson, Nikole. My mother was an artist, so I'm stuck with Nikole. Pearson.com. That's where I'm mainly at. I'm trying to do TikTok. I'll let you
okay.
Which is just Nikole Pearson official as well. So
nice.
If you remember Nikole Pearson, you can find me. There's
okay.
Not many of us out there.
I'm trying to do TikTok too, but trying in term is just me thinking about maybe I'm going to do it.
Yes. That's exactly where I lots of people.
Like I will ease into I will think about it. I will imagine it. Maybe eventually I will actually do it. But
yeah. I do want to use that because again, I want to, be able to educate people, not just about what we can do, but about all the great things that are out there that are available to us right now and that people need to start taking advantage of. And, again, Shell and Exxon will be just fine. So let's figure out how we can make the best of
awesome.
All of us. Do good while also finding benefits. So
awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you so much for listening to Art and Self. And if you loved what you heard, please consider leaving me a rating or a review on iTunes. And share this episode with one friend who needs to hear what we talked about today. You'll find links to the artworks that we discuss over at the show notes at artandself.com. And you can also join my email list to get notified of all of the new upcoming episodes. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Cindy Needs Art. Thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful week. I'll see you next time.